I'm aware that there are people who have phoned in, and I'm sorry because I'm going to be sharing my screen actually, as much as it's lovely to see all your faces. So hopefully what I talk about will be explain everything that's on the screen for you anyway. So Tim, are you able to make me able to share my screen? I thought what'd be a good place just to start is really looking at the perspective biblically on loneliness. Like, why would this be an issue even close to God's heart? So as soon as I've got permission, there we go, I'll bring up my PowerPoint. Okay, can I get some thumbs up from people that you can see it? Is that okay? Super. So there we go. So we don't even have to open the scriptures too far, do we, to get a glimpse of God's heart with this? We look at the creation story and everything was deemed good about it, other than this one thing, that it's not good for man to be alone. And it makes perfect sense, doesn't it, if we consider the fact that we are created in the image of God, who is a Trinitarian God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit in communion. Of course, that means within us is this intrinsic longing for both connection with him and connection with others as part of community. Okay, so if that's the picture biblically, what even is the scene out there? Tim's hinted actually about the UK and kind of the extreme cases of loneliness that we're seeing in this country. We're seeing it globally as well, as we see the increase in age as well. So the over 65s outweighing the under 65s. But let's just look at the UK for a second. This is a projection for between 2016 and 2039 of those over 65 and those under. Now, I Googled Glossop and what Glossop falls into. I wasn't sure if it'd be rural or urban, but it's urban, it's classed as. So we're looking at the far right, this dark blue one, and it's suggested that there's going to be an over 50% increase in over 65s. And if you just look at that in comparison to the increase of unders, it's interesting, isn't it? It's quite a dramatic tipping that's happening. Now, I need to say two things at this point. It doesn't mean, because you get older, doesn't mean you will be lonely. And loneliness doesn't just affect older people. As we've said, loneliness can affect absolutely anyone. But it's interesting with these statistics that they're projecting that the over 85s in the UK is going to double in the next 20 years and actually treble in the next 30 years. And the research that's been done suggests that almost half of those over 85 experience loneliness most of the time. And there's some extra statistics from Age UK. They suggest that 49% of over 65s say television or pets are the main form of company. And 1 in 4 say they've got no one to go to for help or support. Now, that was pre-COVID, so who knows what those figures are right now. In terms of risk on our health, it's as harmful on the body as 15 cigarettes a day, and over doubles your chances of developing something like dementia or Alzheimer's. So it has this holistic response. It can affect everything about a person. So when we started 7 years ago, the community work, I went on some training with Tameside Council, and they were using this material that had been put together by Forever Manchester because they recognised that the funding isn't out there to fully respond to this. We need to find a new way of responding. And they've developed this, it's called ABCD, and it's asset-based community development. So it's basically saying, okay, well, what's the community already got? What are its strengths? Let's start with that, and let's find a way of sustaining something with what the community already has. So going back to our journey 7 years ago, the way we started was, okay, we've got this church hall, what can we do with it? So we opened it once a week for a Monday matinee group and basically dressed it up, invited people in, whoever you were. We didn't specify you have to be over a certain age, it was just come along if you want to. And we'd have, like, you know, quizzes, sing-alongs, games, trips out, etc. But we also use, speaking of like where perhaps God stirred things in my heart and passions, etc., we were looking to the team. What do you bring to this as well? So we'd perhaps have people that would be able to do like floral arranging or craft or a woodwork activity. We'd also use the team to like share testimonies maybe once a month, and we'd do the background to a hymn within the sing-along. or prayer requests on tables. So kind of always sort of hinting at, this is who we are, by the way. Come and have this warm welcome, and let's enjoy this time together. And it was great to build up this rapport with this group of people. But we thought, okay, we've got people coming in. How do we connect with people out there in the community still? We know there's many more who aren't able to access this. So at the time, in 2015, we approached the managers of 3 local care and residential homes in Mottram, because Tameside's adult social care budget was quartered at that point. So they'd actually had to pull out all the activity coordinators for the communal lounges. So we went in and just said, look, we want to be a blessing to the community. They weren't interested in church services at that point. So they were like, okay, so you just want to come and do some activities. We're like, we want to get to know the people in this area. So we went along once a month with the mobile matinee, just doing this activities in the lounges once a month, touring round. And sure enough, it did build this good relationship, good rapport with management as well as residents, and connected people in with other things that were happening at the church as well. And after 2 years, the care home came back to us and said, well, I'd actually really appreciate if you could do church services. And then the social housing complex where we were visiting, we ended up starting a type of like early discipleship course as an extra for some of the residents there that had got to know us. And we were seeing some real penny dropping moments there. It was a real treat. And then the third home, about 2 months before lockdown, they'd given the green light as well for church services. So it'd been a long journey, but actually it just really opened those doors to talk gospel with people. Now, I've mentioned I love old film. I got one of my little dreams come true, because at the same time in 2015, we put in some funding to put a pop-up cinema within the church hall. So we basically dressed it up, got a nice projector in there, fairy lights, as you can see, big fan. And invited people in once a month for this, you know, let's show an old film, and you know, ice cream interval halfway coming around on trays. And again, it was a way of not just connecting with older people, because if someone wants to see a film's one of those great mediums that crosses all generations, genders, whatever. You either want to see it or not. But as we had this rolling, we thought, well, let's open it up to families. So on Saturday mornings, we'd have a family movie morning and do like Disney films and fancy dress now and again and things. And we did, this bottom picture here is a picture of our first all-age film that we showed, because we thought, why not bring these two together? So one summer we put on a film. Now, I'll be honest, a lot of the older folks, they didn't really like the film, but what they said was, what a treat to hear those children laughing in that way, and what a joy to talk with them in the interval. So we saw something quite special happen here with bridging this gap, with bringing these generations together. And so we made this a thing that would happen each summer and Christmas holidays, is we'd do these all-age films, but we thought maybe there's more links we can do here with the ages. So we approached the local primary school and said, look, how's about a few of your kids come down once a month on a Monday, and we'll have an all-age interactive session. So they started to come down, and they quickly became the highlight of the month. Not just for the older people who were saying these kids bring just so much life with them, but the children were going back saying, I've made a new best friend today, and kind of couldn't wait to come back like the following month if it was their turn. And there was learning happening both ways. So the children would be quizzing them about growing up in the war, what that was like. They'd do cooking together, and the kids would teach them, you know, the latest dance off Fortnite or something. I think good old Terry put his hip out one day trying to replicate one of them. But following this theme, one thing that we did when I was youth and community worker is we had lots of conversations with the older folks who said that, you know, their glory days were going to the dance halls. So we thought, okay, let's do something with that. Let's do a one-off annual event where we dress the church to the nines, put a fake dance floor down. We called it the big night out. We said, get your glad rags on, come down. And we'd serve a 3-course meal, so about 70 in the community. And we'd invite local shopkeepers as well, and like local counsellors, say, come along, come and have a nosy. But we'd get all the children and young people down in their own glad rags, doing the serving at the tables and dancing the night away to like a New Orleans jazz band. And I just want to say there was something so special about these nights. We've done them every year, and I just feel it's like this snapshot of what kingdom looks like. Is about how we see demonstrating what a God of redemption looks like, of where we don't have these natural links in society between the generations. Even within our churches, we can often segregate the ministries that we do and keep them solely children, solely youth, etc. And actually there was something people were seeing at these events that was curious to them, and that was breaking down some of the prejudices, not just with children towards the old, but the old towards the young. Because imagine if you don't have any children, or you've not had any grandchildren, or you have no connections with them, which we hear of, then actually all you're hearing is the negative press both ways as well. So that's yeah, just say that's kind of been a real highlight for us, and just kind of encapsulates something of I think this, what it perhaps it could look like to have type of kingdom culture, just in the way that we do this bridging of generations. So I mentioned this is like all the rolling stuff we had going on, but then it was like, God, okay, we've got these things going on, we've got these connections, but we know there are more in our like community that we haven't yet met. So Lord, this was our prayer, bring into light those hidden in darkness, Lord. And we use these verses in Luke 1 because of the tender mercy of our God, whereby the sunrise shall visit us from high to give light to those who sit in darkness and in the shadow of death, to guide our feet into the way of peace. And it was, Lord, bring them into light. And, you know, he's brought us to this position right the way through our time doing ministry, to our knees. That's the position he keeps bringing us back to. You can't do this without me. Just because a door's open doesn't mean it's right to go through. Seek me at every turn and watch me open the doors. And that's sure enough what he did after, I've mentioned Silvercode already, but after a few months of training up the first befrienders from the Mottram churches, we had this door open with the police that really did open several doors within the sector, with social services, social housing, social prescribing, mental health. It was like, wow, how on earth do we respond to all this? If we want it to be a local response, we don't want to send befrienders off all over the other areas. So that's where, if I show you this map here, we partnered with a third church in Longdendale, but we recruited a coordinator for Denton to oversee the project there. And very briefly, two things that we saw happen was about the fact that churches don't just offer this two people approach with befriending. It can look like that, and it may end up staying like that, but we've also seen where people can be drawn straight into community, whether that's through different groups that churches have going on, or even straight into church services or midweek groups. We've seen that happen as well. So it's offering more than just a one-on-one service. Now, the other thing that we've seen is actually who God has recruited into Silvercode. And I'll tell you, most of our befrienders, probably over 90%, are post-retirement. And we have seen God at work in so many ways through the older people within our churches. And there's some verses in Psalm 92 that I just think are fabulous. And it talks about the righteous, and it says, they still bear fruit in old age. They are ever full of sap and green, to declare that the Lord is upright. He is my rock. You know, and there's a writer called Henri Nouwen, and he describes older people almost like desert guides. The people who've been through the desert dry grounds. They've probably known loss and deep levels of pain, and they make these excellent companions to walk alongside others, leading them to water. And I want to just raise Mick in this, of how we've seen this at work through Mick's time with us at Silvercode, just ministering and walking alongside the person that he was matched with, and it really has brought a new level of hope in Jesus to this person. So we praise God and we thank you, Mick, for what you've done and the way you've served through Silvercode, which brings me on to how we've then developed, because obviously COVID happened, everything stops. With all the community work, it all went to like just supporting people over the telephone. We were still sending quizzes out. We were doing as much as we could in gardens when we were allowed to, and then obviously that got cut off. But we partnered with several of the churches across Tameside and Glossop with a COVID response, knowing that actually there was a real need to kind of graft more people into what the response could be with this. But we wanted to be more upfront. We've always said we're local churches responding, but we also wanted to offer prayer to people as well for those that would appreciate it. And inevitably, you know, you can imagine when you're praying for someone, it has organically sort of led to some of those deeper conversations. And we've had, encouraged you here, we've had about, I'd say 75% have wanted prayer as part of the service as well. They've been hungry for hope. They've been hungry for someone to speak into this level of despair they may have encountered. So just to summarize perhaps the vision there with Silvercode, it's about how do we take these grey lives, perhaps lives that are without colour, without hope, and how do we bring something of the vibrancy of the gospel into people's lives and show them what kingdom is about. And this is a friend of ours, and she lets me use a picture alongside her quote, and she said, the thing that makes me happiest is a friend who comes to see me, not for any other reason than to spend time with me. That's worth more than all the pills the doctor can prescribe to feel somebody wants me. And, you know, it doesn't have to be a big thing on our part. You know, those hampers that you're doing, don't underestimate what that communicates to someone who's having a really difficult time. Because it's in those moments, those dark moments, when those glimmers of hope come, that I think resonate the deepest with people. Now, moving forward to Christmas, yeah, we're on that theme, aren't we? We know that that day in particular, Christmas Day, the loneliness can feel very acute for people because it's a very unnatural time to be alone. And the last couple of years, you might recognise a couple of faces on this one. The last couple of years at the church centre, we've held a meal on the day, inviting people in, whether they've been through Silvercode or just found out that we're doing it, and it's felt like a massive family dinner, and it's been a complete joy. And again, as meant, I remember one lady saying to us after the first one, it's made me feel human again. Some of them just haven't had even a Christmas meal for many, many years. So I think you're already aware of this. I know Tim's been plugging it, but this year, using our partnerships with Silvercode, we're actually delivering meals and gifts on the day for those who will be alone. And I'll encourage you that we've had at least 3 more referrals for Glossop this week, which is really encouraging. And again, most of the people that we're delivering to, it's not about COVID. These are people who perhaps haven't known what Christmas is for a very long time. So again, it's bringing that glimmer of hope to people and reducing fear in that as well, that they don't have to be concerned that they won't see anybody on that day. I want to just refer to you an article from January 2018 that the Telegraph did when they did some research about those over 75 that spent Christmas Day alone. And it was interesting. I thought that the headline with it was "Family breakdown is at the root of so many of Britain's biggest problems." And because what they were referring to is that many of these over 75s actually had family members, but just didn't see them or have any interactions, perhaps because they were estranged or they lived very far away. And a core verse for us with Silvercode is in Psalm 68. And it says, "A father to the fatherless, a defender of widows, is God in his holy dwelling. God sets the lonely in families." And I think that is his heart for the marginalised, is those open doors into a loving, warm community that can walk the long road with people. Does that mean it will be easy? I don't actually think it was ever meant to be easy. We have the highs and the lows with that, don't we? Does that mean that family's perfect? Well, no, it never will be this side of eternity. It's about wrestling this out together, isn't it? With all our own imperfections within that. But is there potential for God to bring restoration and healing to the broken in that? I think absolutely. Because we're acting as that signpost, that sort of kingdom signpost to the one who can truly set people free. So just to close it up, I want to go back to this ABCD thing that I referenced at the start, because my head's been ticking since I heard about that. And with the things that we've seen over the last few years, this is just really what I sense God is kind of saying within it of what the potential is, what the church has. The church has got buildings. We know the church isn't a building. I think we're all clear on that one. But the church has buildings, and you guys have got a building slap bang in the heart of Glossop. Wonderful. What potential. It's a great building. I've been in it. You've got a great kitchen and all sorts. what potential there? What can be done with that? What's within you guys already? I don't know, maybe you had stuff going on before, but maybe there's something new as well that perhaps God is stirring up. And, you know, there's examples all over, isn't there, of cafes and clubs. It could be a creche with alongside a cafe tables out. It could be CAP centres, food banks, whatever it is. Who knows? The potential is huge for what that space could be used for. We have older people, praise God. Nothing makes me sadder than when I hear someone complain that a church is just full of older people. I think, great, what are they bringing to the table? What gifts and talents and experiences have they got? And how do we release that into ministry in all different forms? How do we get more people into the church, more older people? It's a wonderful thing. And then I've referenced it already, but actually there's this potential of bridging these gaps with generations. It's not just about young and old, it's everyone in between. It's how can we model that? How can we bring something and do some uniting within that of what it looks like to be family on a whole, as well as with our different groups that we might have. And lastly, we've got the Holy Spirit, guys. That's pretty big news. But I just want to share with you some verses from 2 Corinthians that say, "For God who said, 'Let light shine out of darkness,' has shone in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that the surpassing power belongs to God and not to us. We are not the hero." And what I've absolutely loved is seeing how it's when befrienders or whoever we are, when we walk with that level of vulnerability with people, but carrying the hope of the gospel, it really speaks to people. And I'll just, if I may, embarrass Jan for a second. She was befriending through the whole start of the lockdown for a long time with a lady who ended up getting more social connections. So we brought it to a close, but I'll not forget what her lady said to me. She said, "You know what really blessed the socks off me, Debs, was the fact that it wasn't just about me sharing my woes. We shared together. I was brought into her stuff as well, and it made me feel like I'm just not alone in this." That really comforted me. And so I really appreciated that and love the fact that God is saying, yeah, you are the cracked pots, guys, but that's to show me as strong in this story. So to finish off with a quote from Charles Spurgeon, I read this a few years ago. I don't think it's ever been more appropriate. "Hope itself is like a star, not to be seen in the sunshine of prosperity, only to be discovered in a night of adversity." And it's a safe bet to say that's what we're in at the moment as a country, economically, socially, the list could go on. And I just think there's a huge role for the church at this time if we take a hold of what our calling is in God and allow that releasing within our communities to see what God is at work doing in the lives of those around us. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Tim, I'm sorry, because I know we're pressed for time, but can I share one last thing before we finish? I was praying about this talk last night, and as I was praying, I had a verse drop into my mind. So I've been praying into it more, but I just feel I really want to share it. And Mick even referenced that wilderness thing, and it references that within it. It won't be an unfamiliar verse, I'm sure, but it's a couple of verses, but it's from Isaiah 43. But I just want to share this with you and just share a couple of thoughts with that. So it's, "Remember not the former things, nor consider the things of old. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up, do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. The wild beasts will honour me, the jackals and the ostriches, for I give water in the wilderness, rivers in the desert to give drink to my chosen people, the people whom I formed for myself, that they might declare my praise." And I want to share that with two things in mind. I think as a church, I think God is saying he is at work doing a new thing. Look out for what he's doing for you as a body of believers. But I believe also maybe God's saying there are some of you that are feeling in that place of wilderness. And that might be as a result of just the COVID thing happening. It might be that you hear something like that story that's just been shared of our journey, and you go, that just overwhelms me, because you know the work that could be involved and you're already at capacity, you're right up here. And I feel like God's saying, don't worry, I've got this and I'll show you the way through it. But I also feel it's maybe for those who are feeling like they don't have anything to bring, or perhaps they don't know where they fit within that, and feel like God actually wants to bring rivers to your wilderness as well, and graft you all in on this journey of an adventure with him for your community in Glossop. So if I may just pray, Tim, I'll wrap up then, if that's all right. So Jesus, I want to thank you for Elim. I want to thank you for the heart that's at the core of this church. Yes, to be a family, but also it's a church that's breaking over its community as well, and wants to see you at work in the center of that place. And I just want to pray for each person associated that's in this Zoom call, on the phone, and who will perhaps catch up at another point, and just pray, Jesus, that you will bring those rivers where they're in desert places. I want to pray that you'll revive those who are dry in spirit, and that you will give them a really deep gift of the Spirit to trust in you, that you are the God who makes this possible, that your yoke is easy and your burden is light. And so I pray, Lord, bless them, keep them, and may they be amazed in the days ahead at what you want to do in them and through them. In Jesus' name, amen.